Hello YouTube, this is Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 here. So yesterday I saw The Great Race on YouTube and I started immediately writing my review of it. And then whilst I was doing it, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten that I hadn't done Legend of the Lost Treasure. So yeah, this review is extremely overdue. But here it is finally. I just wanted to get this over with, so I had a quick look at it last night, and then just put. This review's not gonna be as professional as the others. I'm just looking off of notes instead of an actual script. But anyway, here we go. My opinion on Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Way overdue. So, anyways, this special was huge, and yeah, huge. It was. I assume it was supposed to be the other 50th anniversary special. Adventure Begins was more, dedicated to that. But anyway, on with the review. I'm not gonna summarize it just for time, and if you're watching this video, I assume you've already seen it. This review contains spoilers, obviously. So yeah, I'll start with the characters. There are some new ones. There are some old ones that returned, and yeah. So I'll start off with the biggest thing, the elephant in the room. Only, they're actually pretty small. Bah, bad joke. Yeah, I'm talking about the small railway engines. Again, this was the first time since season 4 any railway series character had been introduced. Yeah, I was deeply shocked when I heard about it. I honestly thought we would never see a Railway Series character again, but so this took me by total surprise, and they did it really well, to be honest. Mike, Rex, and Bert, they don't have their individual solid personalities like they do in the Railway Series, but it doesn't matter here because, how do I describe this? Three of them, they all work as one, helpful asset. And, I like the lessons that they teach Thomas. Being small doesn't mean anything. Yeah, haven't heard that before. But no, it's done very well here. The song they sing, I'll get to that later. And, for example, the scene where, the final chase, Sailor John's like, "Oh, those little engines, they can't do nothing." And then, of course, they do something that almost stops Sailor John from getting away. So, yeah. I really liked their introduction. Well, they weren't technically introduced. But anyway, you know what I mean. Now, let's get on to new characters. First of all, Sailor John, the film's villain, voiced by John Hurt, who is a big English star. So, one thing I'll say about John Hurt in this movie was that, although you could sort of tell it was him, he was pretty unrecognizable. Like, he came up with this fun pirate voice. And I really applaud him for that, because, they could have gotten any famous actor, Morgan Freeman, great example. His voice is so iconic. I mean, it works well for characters, but at the same time, you get distracted because it's Morgan Freeman. Here, that's not the case. I wouldn't have guessed it was John Hurt. As far as the character itself, man, I love him. He's just so psychotic about getting the treasure. You just can't hate him. Well, I mean, he's a villain, but, he's just such a fun villain. Yeah, he's the first human villain in the series. P.T. Boomer was cut out. And I also like how he's a modern pirate. That was a very nice touch. And now let's get on to Skiff. I will say I was very concerned with this character before the special came out. Literally, when I first saw a picture of him, I was like, what the actual a boat on wheels? Whatever they're gonna come up with next? So yeah, I was worried it was going to be another Flynn or Bell type character, or something just odd and didn't make sense. Luckily, though, it turned out to work very well, because, well, first of all, Skiff's not owned by the railway, as I thought he would be. Well, I mean, at the end he is, but I thought, he had been bought by Sir Topham Hatt or something. But no, he starts off as Sailor John's boat, and when Sailor John discovers that the treasure might actually be on Sodor, he puts wheels on him, and, he sails along the rails, basically. Yeah. And as far as personality, I really like Skiff. Jamie Campbell Bower did such a good job. He's just such an adorable character, and, he's like the henchman who doesn't like his master. So overall, Skiff's just a fun, likable character. And now Ryan. To be honest, I think they should have cast Eddie Redmayne as a bigger character. How do I describe this? Ryan's not bad. He's just, I just felt he was kind of a Stanley ripoff. He does have some character. He's helpful, but there's not really much to him. He's just an average character, that just pops up and is the new engine. And again, he's not bad. It's just I wish they would have developed him a little more. Yeah, speaking of Stanley, there are a lot of similarities. Running the branch line, taking Annie and Clarabelle. So I thought it was a bit too similar to Stanley. His design, on the other hand, is really great. I like how they have an LNER tank engine. I love his purple coat. But overall, I think Eddie Redmayne should have. They shouldn't really have put a celebrity in that character. But again, he's not bad. I just think he's eh. And so yeah, that's all the new characters. As far as old characters they brought back, well, the biggest one aside from the Arlesdale engines is Donald and Douglas. They don't have that big of a role, but yeah, it was nice to see them again. I find it funny how Duck's like, "Oh, where have you two been?" Yeah, I thought that was a nice nod to the fans. We also have Alfie, Oliver, the excavator, and Max and Monty. Though Max and Monty don't say anything, they don't have a really big role. But yeah, so with Oliver, I really applaud them for this, for finally, the why are there two Olivers thing. Oliver the steam engine versus Oliver the excavator. Well, having said that, I'll talk about that later, but I didn't like the way that it was brought up, but I like it that it was acknowledged. So, those are the characters. What do I like about the special in general? Well, there's a lot, actually. I have a long list here, so I'll try and summarize it as best as I can. It had a solid story. It was a good adventure film, especially at the end, with the chase and the dynamite. And I really liked the relationship between Thomas and Sailor John. How do I describe this? Thomas keeps getting blamed for stuff that, was or wasn't his fault. And, he kind of gets, like the Great Discovery, he kind of gets all upset and feels hopeless and stuff. And then, he comes across Sailor John and they all form a friendship. But then Sailor John basically manipulates Thomas into, finding the treasure, and Thomas realizes that, what may seem much better at first may actually be much worse. It's kind of be careful what you wish for, or, grass isn't greener on the other side. Also, one thing I really liked was that Thomas had his old cheeky personality. Yeah, you'll notice the first and second seasons are really the only times Thomas has been that cheeky little train, even though they say he's the cheeky train in all the songs, even up to now. But anyway, Thomas was teasing Gordon about the coaches, he was being mischievous, and of course this led to a major accident. I was really impressed with that. I thought that was well done. He was his old cheeky self, and also, at the beginning when he was racing Birdie, again, that also relates to that, and that beginning was really well done. It got me hyped. It was pretty funny and lighthearted. A perfect way to start the special. So yeah, Thomas was his old cheeky self. The animation and the scenery is just beautiful. I mean, ARC always does a great job. Or, they always did. Yeah, it's a shame they went bankrupt, but hopefully the new studio can bring a new touch to Thomas. But anyway, yeah, ARC did a fantastic job with the small railway engines. I thought they nailed those. Also, the small railway in general, especially those forest shots with Marion. I thought those were beautiful. And, the pirate ship, the Arlesborough, all these locations, on the Little Western, all those seaside towns and villages, those were just astonishing. I also thought the humor was great. Yeah, that's one thing that's definitely improving in Thomas, is that some of these episodes and stories, they can have some really funny jokes. Yeah, and this special was no exception. The chase at the beginning, Thomas being all snotty to Gordon. Oh yes, that scene where Thomas is trying to get the dynamite out of the quarry, and Sir Topham Hatt sees him. It looks like he's chasing Ryan with the dynamite. That had me in tears. I don't know why. Sir Topham Hatt thinks Thomas is a terrorist. And just the look on his face, he's like, "What is Thomas doing?" So yeah, and also tossing around the dynamite. That's from Marion to Jack to Oliver to Alfie, between all the characters. That's very Tom and Jerry like. I also laughed at that. I like the message or messages of the special. I think the main one was, little engines can do big things. But then there was also the message that, Sir Topham Hatt said, like, Thomas, you're more worth than any treasure on this island, or something like that. So yeah, I liked the second one a lot. It's kind of like Misty Island Rescue, where he loses his hat, and he's like, I can get another hat, but I can't find another Thomas. Yeah, that's a good lesson. Speaking of little engines, I'll talk about the song, Never Overlook a Little Engine. When I first heard about it, I was pretty concerned. I was like, oh god, please don't make Thomas a musical. So, what do I think of it? Well, it started off, it was pretty nice. A nice song. I don't know why, it just, having the small engine singing it was it just seemed to fit for some reason. Yeah. But then, about halfway through, the visuals of the song got really freaking bizarre. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It was like, the small engines turn into butterflies, and then they all fly over Thomas's face, and then they're all underwater. I don't know what to say. I am speechless. This is definitely, Pink Elephants on Parade style. Yeah, it was like I was taking an LSD trip. So yeah, the song itself is pretty good. It's just, it's not, the visuals aren't bad, but it's just weird. Okay, as to other positives, well, one thing I really liked about this special, it was very epic, but they took a lot of risks, especially with Sailor John and, the dynamite. But it wasn't too violent, if you know what I mean. I never thought they went too far. I mean, I will say Sailor John maybe could scare some really little kids, but overall, I mean, the film has a perfect balance. Yeah, it's pretty epic. Like, that shot of when Sailor John falls in the water and he loses the treasure, my god, I had to keep reminding myself I was watching a Thomas movie. There's more emotion there than in the Twilight movies. So yeah, there's a lot of positives in this special, as you can see. Are there any negatives? Well, yeah, but not that many, to be honest. I mean, there is one glaring thing, though, that I was really bugged about. And that is basically how Marion was used. Now, I don't hate Marion's character. She does get some laughs, and I always relate to her quirky personality. She's socially awkward, which, I can definitely relate to. But this whole engine, the small railway engines being magical thing, it gets so annoying. The main reason for this is, well, the joke would have been funny if it was just, one scene, just a few lines or something. Yeah, I would have laughed. But they drag it throughout the whole special to the point, where it grinds the plot to a halt, so we can basically watch Marion be a bumbling idiot, like, oh, Rex, you're so magical, or, guess what's in my bucket? I mean, this is kind of what makes characters like Jar Jar Binks universally hated. They make one joke at the beginning, and, it may be funny, may not be, But then the creators think that it would be funny every time they do it. But after a while, it just gets old. That's one thing about comedy. You can't repeat it because, again, it just gets old and it's like beating a dead horse. So, yeah, this was definitely my least favorite thing about the special, hands down. Again, I don't hate Marion. I was just before the special, I had mixed views on her. I thought, again, her whole "guess what's in my bucket" thing, it does get a bit annoying, but she's quirky and a fun character. You can relate to her, being socially awkward. I know I definitely can. So yeah, that's my main issue, and I don't think it's probably an issue for other people. This is more of an opinion thing. So yeah, if you thought it was funny, that's fine. I just thought it was, again, beating a dead horse. And it does lead to a plot point of Marion finding the treasure, but again, it just got really annoying after a while. So, as far as other negatives, not much else. I did think Sir Topham Hatt was a little harsh on Thomas, but again, that does, lead. It's an important part of the plot. It does lead to Thomas, forming the relationship with Sailor John, and, I guess Sir Topham Hatt did learn a lesson in the end. I also thought Daisy's appearance was extremely pointless. It's great seeing her again, but they just shoved her in at the very end. Donald and Douglas didn't have a big role either, but at least they had some stuff to do, like taking the pirate ship. But, Daisy all of a sudden appears out of nowhere. And speaking of Daisy, I'll also add, why is she off her branch line? I don't know. She works on Thomas's branch line, and they suddenly just take her to this new one. I don't mind changes, but that's a pretty drastic change. Yeah. So yeah, Daisy's appearance was pretty pointless. Also, relating back to Ryan, this isn't a big issue. This is kind of a nitpick, but, I felt Thomas really didn't have any reason to hate Ryan. It's not like, at least in a Great Discovery, Stanley, but even Stanley, there wasn't a big reason for Thomas to hate Stanley. But here in Lost Treasure, Thomas, Ryan's bigger, and it seems that he's stronger, but he's not, like, boasting or anything. That would have made the relationship a bit more understandable. But again, that's kind of a nitpick. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Yeah, it's my second favorite special after Adventure Begins. It just felt so cinematic, more cinematic than the actual movie, that, Magic Railroad, which was actually in theaters. Andrew Brenner really outdid himself here. I'm very impressed. There was a lot of stuff that exceeded my expectations, and I definitely give this special an A. Right now I'm working on a review of The Great Race. I hope to have it up on September 5th when, it is released in the UK, and this review will be a lot more formal than the other ones, professional. It'll have footage, it'll have music, it'll be like a real review, not just some guy blabbering in front of the computer. So yeah, see you then.